Okay, I'm okay. Anyway, hello everyone. This is Sade. I'm coming to you with a. This is just a video on basically how my journey started. My general journey, my entire journey in general, my journey as I awakened, and what that actually means. I'm using my grandmother's laptop. As you can see, the camera makes it look like I'm recording this back in 2002. So, yeah. But, so basically, I'm trying to figure out where I should start. So basically, this journey for me started, the spiritual journey for me started back in 2015. Now, I've always been Christian. I've always grown up in like somewhat of a spiritual home, be it with my dad, my grandma, my family in general. But I wouldn't have considered myself exactly awakened to it. I always believed in God, Jesus, like angels, miracles, all of that, but I never quite paid it much attention to it. I was really solely focused in what was in front of me, focused in what I'm doing, and what I'm not doing, But back in 2015, I graduated high school, or no, I graduated college, got my associate's degree, and moved to San Antonio. When I moved, all I knew was that, number one, I wanted to get out of Midland, which is a very small city in West Texas, in case you didn't know. And number two, I knew what most of everyone around me was telling me, which was, you need to get out of Midland. You need to hurry up and go for your bachelor's degree. You need to hurry up and get a good paying job. Everyone's telling me what I need to do, what I should be doing, right? So I was following it. I was just following it. And I went to the first city that I heard of that wasn't anywhere near Midland, really. Honestly, it's just about 6 hours away, 5-6 hours away by car. So I went to school. I finished a couple of semesters of school, but eventually, I also got my own apartment. Now, when I went to San Antonio, it's somewhat easy to get a job here in Dallas if you're going for just anything. Let me turn this a bit. Yeah, sorry, here in Midland if you're going for just anything. The oil field is here, so everything is expensive, but the pay is also better here. But in comparison to when I went to San Antonio, it was not easy to get even a common job like Target or Sam's. At one of these jobs like those, I was applying for cashier. I was told that I had to be promoted to cashier when that was all my experience was in cashier. And I said, okay, what do you start as? They said, a basket pusher. I was like, well, you don't have to consider anything. It's fine. I appreciate your time. But, the point is, my time in San Antonio from the very moment I got there began unprepared and unstable. Just began unstable. I did get my own apartment. I took over a lease. Then I ended up rooming with my best friend. Well, not rooming with her. We both got the apartment together, signed for an apartment together. And that, dealing with the leasing office, was like, I was in that leasing office. That was my first official apartment. I was in and out of that leasing office. I never had to get upset with a person when it came to business, but you know, when people are trying you and they think because you're young you don't. I was half raised by my grandma who keeps receipts, has filing, anyway. So that was turbulent. So like I said, couldn't find a job, was depending on my credit card. My first apartment, they just kept trying to evict us even though we were paying. So I was going back and forth with them constantly. Eventually, I had to leave school because I could no longer afford my books, even though I eventually found a job. I even, before this job that I had found, I was working a job at Pizza Hut as a delivery driver. I worked there for about a week because they were trying to keep me there till 12 a.m. And yeah, the 12 a.m. shift was on a Saturday. The last day they saw me was Friday. But yeah, even after I got this job at a call center, I was still not able to keep up, basically. And, in the midst of all this, still people are in my ear, you should do this, you should do that, you need to try this, why aren't you trying that? So I'm taking all of this in, I'm taking all of it in. And that is now weight upon me along with what it is I'm experiencing. Telling myself I'm not doing enough. Eventually, it was time for, my lease was up for the apartment. I had gotten fired from the call center job because they were closing it down. It's closed down now. Still. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this apartment, but I know my ass is not going back to Midland. That's all I know. I will sleep in my car before I come back to Midland. That's what I said at that time. And I even had a random guy that I had met, this nice Indian guy, at the apartment complexes. He really wanted to hang out and everything, but something he kept telling me was, why don't you just be happy? Why don't you just be happy? Just be happy, And I was, at the time I was trying to explain, I didn't know what to say to him, honestly, because I was like, that would be nice. But I currently don't know how because everything seems to be falling on top of me, But, the pattern that I noticed was I was constantly trying to follow what everyone else was saying. Again, I was like, I wasn't hearing any of the divine. I was solely focused in the physical. And being solely focused in the physical was really, really weighing on me because paying attention to only what you see in front of you and what's happening in front of you, that can really bring you down. And it did. Eventually, like I said, my lease was up in the apartment. And my friend had already found another place to live with another friend of hers. And that was going fine. She had found another job that she's still at, very stable. But me, as I was looking for jobs, no one was hiring me. Whatever interviews I went to, they would deny me, So, and as I would talk to certain people about this, they'd ask me, well, are you dressing right? Let me see your resume. Let me see if it's good, which does help. Let me tell you that sometimes your resume does need a bit of work, right? My resume has been changed so many times from other people trying to help me out. And a couple of them have been, to me, extremely good, but using those resumes, still, the result wasn't changing. So, I was in that apartment by myself, and it was practically empty because I had already moved 90% of my things out. So I was on my air mattress on the floor, or no, I had a mattress that I got from somewhere else. So I was on my mattress on the floor, eating ice cream every night, pretty much. I could afford some of those drumsticks, the ice cream drumsticks. I was eating those every night, and just by myself all the time. When it came to time for me to move out, the maintenance man at that apartment said, "You know what? I'll just tell them you've already moved. They don't really even check anyway." So I was basically a squatter. I was squatting. I was squatting, and there was one day, and another thing was my car was also falling apart. It was an '07 RAV4. Loved it, but it I just had to keep dropping money into it, and bought a new alternator for it. You know, eventually the transmission went out, couldn't afford that, but I haven't even gotten there yet. There was one day I was sitting in my car. I couldn't stand to be in that apartment, so every day I just like hopped. I hopped the fence at night or in the afternoon to different college apartments, and would just chill in the jacuzzi. They go back to the house and eat some ice cream. And there was one day I pulled up in the parking lot of this apartment, and I was sitting in my car, and I had no money. I was really gonna have to get out of this apartment. Didn't know where I was gonna go or what I was gonna do. And I was like, I literally sat there and said to myself, I sat there for a minute actually, quiet. I talked to myself a lot when I'm by myself, but I just had nothing to say except I am on my ass right now. And I have nothing else to do but to trust God. Like, I have literally no action can I take right now. I've tried the job searching. I've tried, scraping money up for Uber. I was an Uber driver. I started that I think I started that in 2015. By this time, whenever it was already 2017, whenever I was at this point. Yeah, I said, I have no other choice. It's out of my hands. It's out of my hands. And that scared the shit out of me. It scared the shit out of me because I was so used to trying to do everything myself. So when you get to that point where you have nothing else to do but to literally have faith, it's like I have no choice but to have faith right now. When your faith is your last resort, when Holy Spirit, when your angelic guides are your last resort, that's when I think I began to open all three of my eyes, basically. I began to realize, I still hadn't gotten to my, realization of all my lessons yet or anything. But that was the beginning of realizing that I can't do it myself. I'm gonna have to go to the spiritual side. I'm gonna have to give attention to that now. So after that, it's kind of like my intuition also woke up, and your intuition is your connection to your guides, your protectors, Holy Spirit, and all that. So I got the message to reach out to a cousin of mine. She's an older cousin, in her late 30s, early 40s, I believe. She's very well established, very intelligent. So I told her, I kind of told her majority of my situation, and she was like, try Airbnb for your living situation for now, still it gives you more time to look for a job, because I was still trying to stay in San Antonio. Again, it's I will sleep in my car before I come back to Midland. That's what I said. Still. Which means even though I awakened, I was still not that receptive to all the options that I had, right? So I do Airbnb. I find this kind Asian couple. One's Vietnamese and one was Taiwanese, I believe. and they're renting out a room for roughly 600 and something, I believe. But it was nice. Like, it was a nice place. They had Netflix, had my own room, my own little TV in there. They allowed me to cook in there when I wanted. I cooked for them, like once or twice, I believe. They loved my food. But anyway, they were just outside of San Antonio, right? And so I find a job with QVC, call center. And I start going to training with them. 2 months in, my transmission goes out. I can no longer go to the training. I look up bus routes. No bus routes come to Converse, Texas. That's where I was. I was in a certain area within Converse, Texas, and there were no nearby bus routes. And I could not ask this couple who worked every day to take me to these bus routes, nor did I have money for Uber. And I had no friends. Not many friends out there that could have given me a ride. So I was low-key SOL. So what happened? I had to call Grandma, who stays in Midland. That's who I live with in Midland. And, she helps me pay for my last month of rent. She found someone to take my car as is because it would not move. It would turn on, but it wouldn't move. And she brought my ass back to Midland, the place I was kicking and screaming to come to. Okay. I was angry when I first got to Midland. I didn't even want to hear my guides. Like, I was awakened to them, but I was like, don't talk to me. I was literally like, don't talk to me. You knew I didn't want this. Like, I was not having it. Okay? I was just not having it. But eventually I calmed down and realized that I had to broaden my perspective. Now, I did broaden my perspective, but not as wide as I should have, and I said that for a reason, right? I stayed here for about 8 months, I think. 8 months. And I was doing well. I was following a daily schedule for myself. I was painting, doing yoga, working out, meditating every day. I had gained good weight. I was nice, slim, thick, But, I was thinking, oh yeah, and I had found a good job here with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Eventually that had stopped. The job I was working had stopped. So I was still listening more so to what other people were saying I should do, rather than listening to the guidance I was receiving. So although I had awakened, I still wasn't quite listening. I was still kind of in a hurry. Even though I had somewhat relaxed and accepted that I was here, I still had on my mind, I'm not going to stay here, and I'm going to hurry. I have to get to a bigger city. I have to get to a bigger city. So that bigger city, the next one was Dallas. I moved to Dallas, I believe, like June of 2018. And it kind of went the same way as it did in San Antonio. What was my first job? I was still doing Uber. I was depending on Uber for a while, and actually I was thinking, Uber will be sufficient for me, because everyone I know who's doing Uber, every time I hear a story about Uber, which again I started in 2015, people are making $1,500 at the end of the week, at the end of every 2 weeks or so, no less than $600 to $800 at the end of the week. So what's different for me? What was so different for me? The only difference was it wasn't happening for me. The most I was getting on a good day was like $400 And at this time, my grandma had given me her '07 Jeep Compass that she had for years. She passed it down to me. Um, you know, and I was just not achieving that Uber, like getting that Uber money that I was hearing about so much, you know. So that was another sign for me. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but throughout this timeline, I have gotten so many signs and directions that I'm just completely avoiding, right? This was another one, you know. So for a long time, I was depending on Uber. And um, what else? Oh, yeah, then I eventually got a job with Amazon Warehouse. Working in the Amazon warehouse, I really wanted to work with Amazon so bad, you know, because I was hearing like good things mostly about the money. You know, still money focused. So, you know, I was like, I want to save, I want to do this, I want to do that. So I worked there. I hated it. Low-key hated it. But, you know, I was going to work, doing what I had to do. Now, this Amazon position was mandatory seasonal and part-time. So I was only working 20 hours a week. 20 to 25, unless I snuck in some overtime, which they were not really having that. So eventually I lost that job. Then I got a job with Amazon delivery. So I was working with a company that works alongside Amazon delivering packages. That job was cool at first, then I hated it. But I kept going, you know. And again, I still had the mindset of, I'm not going back to Midland. I'm not going back to Midland. You know, I'm going to push through this. Now, where I was living, I was first living with, when I first moved to Dallas, I was first living with my stepmom. That didn't exactly work out. Nothing terrible between us, but it just didn't work out. Then I started living with a friend. I had to get out of there because that was not exactly working out. I was also doing babysitting jobs in between all of this, just babysitting here and there, pet sitting, you know, house sitting. Same thing in San Antonio. So I was doing everything I could, you know. But even though I say this, I'm going to pause on my story for a second. Even though I say this, I was low-key being told by certain souls and by souls I mean people, by certain people that they were insinuating that I basically wasn't doing enough. And that's also what was getting me to push myself even more, you know. And I wouldn't say in a good way, because even though I'm pushing myself, I'm not pushing myself out of, you know, belief in myself necessarily. Even though I did have belief in myself, I had more self-doubt than self-belief, you know, because of this, you know. But because I wouldn't follow my own guidance or what I wanted, you know. That's partially to do with me, like my fault, mostly my fault. Everything starts with you. But so where was I? Yeah, so after living with the friend, I eventually found a room online through Google, cheap room for rent, whatever. $400. Now this room was the size of a twin size bed. It wasn't a room exactly, it was more of a space. It was a space. There were no doors, and it was right in between the garage and the kitchen. So mine's right here, you know. And there were curtains as my doors, and the main entrance was the garage, so I can hear everything that's happening. And then I could hear everything that was also happening in the kitchen. So really, I was not resting. I was not resting, not sleeping as much, and with so little room, I already didn't have a lot, but I didn't have a lot of room to work with, even when it came to just thinking space, right? So I'm paying $380 for this room. The landlady brought it down to $380. Also, it's a twin size bed that I'm sleeping on. Twin size bed, and the room or the space is the size of the twin size. So eventually, I got to a point where I was homeless because I was living in this space for about a year and a couple of months. And eventually I couldn't take it, and just other things happening in my life was just all piling on top of me. So, and then the energy in that space was just not good for me. So, and I was really picking up on it. So, Midland was starting to cross my mind. I was fighting it for so long, but Midland was starting to cross my mind. And I knew deep down inside that I was going to have to go back. I didn't know why exactly, but I knew I was going to have to go back. I didn't know for how long, but I knew I had to go back. I knew I had to go back and start over. Now, along all of this turbulence in Dallas, I am low-key receiving messages, receiving signs from Spirit in different ways. Not that I have to go back in Midland necessarily, but that even though I'm on the right path, I'm not quite listening. And personally, I believe even though you never really get off of your path. You can take a route that's going to take you longer to get to your destination. But that's all it's doing, is taking you a bit longer. But the lessons that you're meant to learn, they're always going to reach you. They're always going to follow you in some type of way, and they did. They did. Yeah. And boy, I can't explain to you. I appreciate the lessons, but let me tell you, it was like 1-2, that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like at the time. But now I am grateful because I learned a lot, and I'm still learning. I am currently on, this is where I am right after. I moved from Dallas January 15th. And today it is February 24th. So I am currently still on this path, and I always will be. I'm currently still on my journey, and I always will be. And I don't know how long I'll be here. I'm in Midland. I don't know how long I'll be here. I don't know exactly how things are going to go. I will say that they're not going how I, as a human, would like it to go. But, another thing. When I got here for about 2 weeks, I still was not listening to my guidance. Because I was still telling myself. I had already gotten to a point where I realized, okay, I need to stop listening to everyone on the outside of me. And I need to listen to what's going on within me. Okay? But I still wasn't hearing everything that Spirit was telling me. I still wasn't hearing everything. I was only getting so much at a time. And I'd finally gotten to a point where it's like, you know what? I haven't been following my heart. I haven't been following and listening to myself as to what I'm passionate about. I haven't been listening to what I want to do. I didn't have direction in San Antonio. I was just going insane because I was like, I know the things I like, but I also know what I think I need to do because of what everyone's telling me. So it was just clashing and creating a big mess. And I just was like, I felt directionless. I felt absolutely directionless, and I didn't know, I didn't know where to go. But all of that led me right here. And the point is not Midland. Midland is not the point. Midland is not my ultimate destination, and I know that much. The point is patience. The point was always patience and sitting down. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, roughly around the time from when I first got here to about a week ago, I was feeling really heavy, very depressed. I'd experienced something, and along with that, I'd experienced something that required me to physically heal and emotionally heal. I wasn't allowing it because I was like, I'm broke. I have no savings. I have bills I'm late on. My credit is terrible. I have no job. Right before I moved to Midland, I was staying in a hotel for about a week. And so I was just saying all this to myself, constantly going for jobs, constantly applying for jobs, applying for my unemployment, calling about that, going to doctor's appointment, and, not really resting. I was really kind of just beating myself up and, telling myself I'm not doing enough, which is something that I kept hearing from the outside that I brought myself to believe because of what doing enough should look like, which is working yourself to dust, working yourself into your sweating blood. They call it grinding. I believe in grind. I believe in the grind. Don't get me wrong, but I believe in grind. I believe in balanced grinding, where you take yourself into consideration, right? And I was just listening to the outside. I was listening to what was going on outside of me, not within me. And I knew deep down, my intuition was telling me, Spirit is saying you need to sit down. You need to sit your ass down. You need to allow yourself to heal and accept what's happening right now in your present moment. You need to be in the present moment. You need to pick up those journals that you brought. They're brand spanking new and you haven't touched them. Pick up those journals that you got. You have stuff to write down, plenty. Not just positive affirmations, which I did have to do. Make yourself a daily schedule. You need grounding, And even though I was receiving this, I wasn't listening. I was tuning it out because I was like, I don't have time for that. I need a job. I need this and that, But I would part of my signs was I wasn't getting a job, The mindset I had when I came back to Midland this second time was I want to go back to Midland and get stable. I want to be stable mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I want to be in alignment. And like I said, those first 2 weeks, I just was like, okay, I'm in Midland. Why isn't it happening? Because like I said, being in Midland, just Midland itself, that's not what it was about. It's about listening, just listening to your guidance and having patience. Open your eyes to the lessons that you are receiving and learning. Open your eyes to the cycles that have been happening. What do you notice within these cycles? Not just in your love life, in all of your life. What are the patterns that you notice? The patterns that I noticed was I wasn't listening to myself. I was listening to everybody else. I wasn't listening to the guidance I was receiving. I was focused on the physical. I was trying to do everything myself. I kept resisting my guidance, which was causing that slowdown too. And here I am right now telling you that in order to get what is meant for you, what is destined for you, you need to be open to the idea that maybe more is going on than what your human eyes can see. More is going on behind the scenes, right? Sometimes you just have to stop. Sometimes you just have to stop and receive. Everything starts with you. Everything is going to begin with you. When it comes to your journey, your experiences, your cycles, and your lessons, everything begins with you. It's about patience, balance, acceptance. And when I say balance, I mean balance in everything. You know, I was introduced, not by anyone, I just stumbled upon a video on YouTube about tarot, and it was actually a love reading, a collective love reading. I experienced that in San Antonio. No, actually I was in Dallas, excuse me. That was in, I believe, 2018. Somewhere around towards the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019. And immediately I was interested. I was like, oh my gosh, like I love this. Now I knew of tarot cards, but only in movies. You know, it was only in movies, and I was like, it interested me, but I was like, you know, I never, it sounds stupid, but I don't know, I didn't consider, well, you know, I think I can get my own deck. I guess I thought they were always a prop in a movie, even though I knew they were real. You see readers all the time when you drive on the street, but, you know, I never went in. So, and the reading that I saw, you know, it resonated with me at the time. Sorry, I'm looking at this pop-up online. So that was the beginning of my journey as a reader. As soon as I saw my first video, I wanted my own deck of cards. And my first deck was, I'm not remembering the name, but you've seen it in some of my readings. I wish I brought it with me here. It's just in my room, but I don't want to make you guys wait, honestly. Well, I can see that I can pause it. 1 second. Okay, so my first deck was the Easy Tarot. Can you see it? The Easy Tarot. I was upset when I didn't write the date that I got it. I don't think I wrote it. Of course I didn't. Oh my god. But yeah, the Easy Tarot. I got it from Barnes & Nobles. I was excited when I realized I could get it from there, but yeah. The guidebook still looks new because I don't use this guidebook, but I wear the F out of that deck. Now I have 8 decks. I'm hoping to expand my collection, but I felt guided to read tarot because even though that reading I stumbled upon was about love, I felt as though this, like, I could use it to, one, I loved it that I could, like, communicate with the divine in a tangible way, like, not only with my intuition or with my insight, but with actual, like, you know, I can see the message. And as I learned with videos and just, like, you know, getting the meanings of the cards, including oracles and what they were and everything, as I learned, it just started to flow with me, you know. And I felt like not necessarily the cards themselves would help people, but I feel like it makes people feel good when they can see something, and it kind of helps, when they can see something. Like the cards are just a physical way to, a tangible way to receive a message, but it's just confirming what you're already receiving, what you already know. And it also feels good to hear something that you already knew you were getting from someone else. Like it feels good to hear something that, a confirmation. It feels good to get a confirmation of something you already knew, especially when it really resonates with you, not something that, hurts you or makes you feel down or shameful, or, something that doesn't really resonate with your heart, but you feel like you should do it because society is saying you should. Like I say it in a couple of my videos, I call it Twitter chatter. For example, quick example, you need to block this Negro, right? Because he ain't doing X, Y, and Z. When that's not what you really want to do, but you're asking, should I block him? And the girl's like, yeah, B, you need to block him because of X, Y, and Z, when she doesn't even believe that. She won't even do that for her own situation. In fact, even when she blocked him, she immediately unblocked him. So I call it Twitter chatter. It's just an example. But following your heart. I'm cutting into 40 minutes, so I'm gonna try to close this out. But like I said, the main purpose of this video was basically to give a little bit about myself and my journey, but also to let you guys know that you are not on this journey alone, and believe that you are on a journey right now. There's more going on than you can see right in front of you. There are reasons why you experience what you experience. There are deeper reasons why you experience what you experience. And some things are just what they are, right? Sometimes it's not as deep, but a lot of the time there's a deeper meaning, especially when you feel in your soul something was meant to happen. And you're only going to receive this insight in a way that's tailored especially for you. I say that because if you try to explain it to someone else on the outside and they tell you, bro, you're overthinking it, dude, you're looking too far into it, you sharing that, and it's okay to share, but share with people who are on the same page as you, who are awakening to their journey also. You're talking to unawakened people, that doesn't mean they'll stay unawakened, but they're currently unawakened, So go along this journey with open eyes, a broad perspective. Listen to the guidance you're receiving, and even if you happen to take a kind of stray from your path, you're not off your path. You're just trying to take your own route that you think is right. But you're still going to receive the lessons that you're meant to receive. You're going to learn, and you're going to be right back on where you're supposed to be, like me. And on the outside looking in, a lot of people won't understand what you're doing. It won't make sense to them. It'll seem like you're, dilly-dallying, wasting time. You're in a fantasy world or whatever. But it's not for them to understand. It's for you to understand, and for you to know and have faith in yourself, your journey, and your angelic guides, your spirit, God, whoever it is you believe in. Because you're not alone. All right. I love you guys. You have a great night. And yeah, I will be posting a video on my perspective on love and the journey with another soul. Basically fated soul love connections. So look out for that. Anyway, you guys have a great rest of the night. I love you. Rest well. And just have faith and have patience, all right? You have a good night.